Okay, friends, welcome back. Now, this is going to be a new series, but allow me to explain. This series is on MATHAY versus the 7 NL. What does that mean? I'll get to that in a second. But basically, even though this is a new series for the YouTube channel, we actually published this series first, followed by the Masterpiece of Deception presentations, which was actually the first presentation. So Masterpiece of Deception is a manuscript that was published back in 2006. So it was actually like part one. This that we're going to do on the 7 NL is actually part two. If you've been watching, you've actually been watching what you could call part three with the domain of the divine, the masterpiece of divinity. And we just recently, our last video, one before this, is on the next part, which you could call part four of the Elohim declaration. So we're going to kind of go back and catch up with some of these presentations that we published in the thought paper, starting with November 15th, 2019, part one of the MATHAY versus 7L and L. So what does it mean? Jesus said, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Now, it's not my, I'm not going to attempt to try to read everything. I'm just going to try and highlight. And of course, this video can be paused and read the, these paragraphs or sentences that, I'm not going to be covering, because it's basically the whole thought paper. And, it's up to you if you want to, because on the, in the description box below, you can access the thought papers by clicking on the link and download them, or you can go to 5 agendas and click on newsletters when you scroll down on the main page and select the different ones on the newsletters tab for whatever thought paper you want to research. But here it is. So our readers may be wondering what the 7 NL stands for. Well, it stands for the 7 Noahide Laws. So I may just, in these videos, just say 7 NL or 7 as we're reading it through, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Do our readers remember these? Because we talked about them previously, and that's just what that talks about. But this may have been the first time some of our readers may have even heard it. And when I, we started presenting these series, it was just hadn't been long since, I first heard of it. So it's important for us to know what they are, what they mean, where they come from, who signed them into law the very first time, and when, how, by whom they are signed into law every year. That's kind of different, don't you think? All right. So why the huge movement is afoot to bring them onto the world scene, and most importantly, how these 7 N's are going to affect anyone who has the testimony of Jesus, the spirit of prophecy. Okay. So how is MATHAY in opposition to or versus the 7 L's? 7 N's. 7 L's. You know what I mean. Allow me to briefly explain. So remember, MATHAY is until when, which points you to the man in linens, the wonderful numbers. Answer, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed, which is 1844. Now remember, 1844 is when Christ, our great high priest, after the order of Melchizedek, began the second immutable, his second immutable aspect, antitypical final atonement administration of a Hebrews 9:23 necessary cleansing of heavenly things, and also a people called in scriptures men wondered at. This is the everlasting gospel, clear and simple. This is the new covenant that Hebrews 8 and 10 explain. The Lord is saying, this is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their hearts, and in their minds will I write them, and their sins and iniquities will I remember no more. Therefore, MATHAY points to what? the man in linen's 10 commandment covenant, being written on our hearts and minds. And that is what is in direct opposition to this counterfeit 7 ends, which could be a law that will go forth out of Jerusalem in Isaiah 2. So have a think about that. Even a counterfeit to the 10 commandment covenant of he who made. So we have the 10 commandments, and then we have the counterfeit, 7 Noahide laws. Now, while we are not saying that there's anything wrong with the Noah aspect, neither are we saying that there's anything wrong with good laws. We recognize that the man in linen's 10 commandment covenant, wherefore the law is holy and the commandment holy and just and good, and will be written on our hearts and minds of the 144,000. Be it known, this process of writing on the minds and hearts is betokening the man in linen's ministration of cleansing and the final atonement in the court. It is in fact that the 7 ends are a counterfeit to the 10 commandments, along with their history, how they are being promoted in the present. You don't hear too much about them, but they're there. Of course, you're not going to hear too much about them on fake news media anyway. Along with how they are being interpreted and how they contain an oppressive law, which deserves our astute and careful attention. Naturally, this discussion will need to involve the National Sunday Law, which surprisingly contains no similar, it doesn't contain a death decree as the 7 ends do. So ask yourself, which law should you be most concerned about? A law that if broken will command a fine, or one that commands decapitation? All right, so that's what I'm concerned about, because it'd be easier for me to pay a fine than having my head chopped off, right? So you'll see why soon. Most importantly, I think we would all like to keep our heads. And while the the National Sunday Law holds no mention of the Sabbath, it is the 7 ends which attack he who made the first angel's message, the Sabbath. Which is more important? Which one carries more of the possibility of, if it were possible, they should deceive the very elect with it? Okay. Fact is, the National Sunday Law has been on Laodicea's radar for over 100 years. Whereas the 7 ends, 7 Noahide laws, unwidely known. And it's not on their radar. Remember how we talked about how the non-Jews are taking the Noahide vow? And that was in a previous thought paper. And that they weren't Laodiceans. So the 7 Noahide laws, as traditionally enumerated, are as follows. Now in the thought paper that you can download, the link is below. It provides this link here. See? Tap on that. Not in the video. And sorry, I may have, made it seem like you could like that in the past. So apologize for that. It won't work by tapping on that in the video. At least I don't think so. Shouldn't. So here's your 7. Not to worship idols, not to curse God, to establish courts of justice, not to commit murder, not to commit adultery, bestiality, or sexual immorality, not to steal, and not to eat flesh torn from a living animal. Now, it's the first 2, and especially the second one here, that's the real cause for concern. Okay. So here's your 7 laws in Noah. So there's another link. So why the need for 7 ends when most of these are already covered in the 10 Commandment covenant? There's no reason. There's no need. The First Amendment, breached. Okay. Fact is, the 7 ends defies the First Amendment, which is the first 10 amendments. The Bill of Rights were ratified effective December 15th, 1791 of the U.S. Constitution. If you're not familiar, it says In the amendments to the Constitution of the United States of America, Amendment 1, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. These 7 Noahide laws are basically an establishment of religion signed into law. Okay? And so there's your links for the First Amendment. So the 7 N's are in fact religious, codified in the Babylonian Talmud. The 7 N's were confirmed by joint sessions of Congress. They're validated each year by a president of the United States. Yet what is strange is the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America prevents Congress from making a law respecting an establishment of religion. All right, this is why we are warned in the near future an anti-Christian law will be declared from Jerusalem. Interesting. Isaiah 2. Okay. And we'll be discussing Isaiah 2 more as we go forward. So what we have here is what's called Education Day USA. And so here's your history behind the making of the 7 Noahide laws into public law. So there's your link. The text of the joint session explains how the First Amendment about religion was maneuvered and then signed into public law by US President George Bush, the senior, in 1991. So the key points for this HJ Resolution 104, 102nd Congress of the United States of America at the first session. See here you have Thursday, 3rd of January, 1991, joint resolution to designate March 26, 91 as Education Day. So the thing you should be asking yourself is, what does Education Day have to do with these 7 Noahide laws? Kind of sneaky. Where it says, whereas Congress recognizes the historical tradition of ethical values and principles, which are a basis of civilized society and upon which our great nation was founded. Whereas these ethical values and principles have been the bedrock of society from the dawn of civilization, known as the 7 Noahide laws. Okay, so look down here and you can read this more. Pause it now, but I'm just jumping to the underscore parts. Historical ethical values. And whereas the Lubavitch movement has fostered and promoted these ethical values and principles throughout the world. Whereas Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, leader of the Lubavitch movement, is universally respected and revered, and his 89th birthday falls on March 26th. Whereas in tribute to this great spiritual leader, okay, one of education and giving, turn our education charity, how sneaky. Now, for me personally, I knew what the First Amendment was. And when I found out that our basic First Amendment has been breached, and regardless of it saying Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, the fact that they did so as an American, that was quite troubling for me. So whether you're an American or not, it should be very concerning for you. Why? You're going to find out. All right, so here's your 7 Noahide laws. Okay, signed by the President of the United States and other heads of state, resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives. United States American Congress assembled March 26, start of the 19th year of Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, leader of the Lubavitch movement. Education Day, USA. The President requested to issue a proclamation calling upon the people of the United States to observe such day with appropriate ceremonies and activities. So this is asking me to celebrate the breaching of my First Amendment. Boy. All right, this is only just the start. The enemy of righteousness breached the US Constitution and a law about religion, a Seven Noahide Law is under an Education Day USA bill. Now our readers need to see something by way of comparison, and that comparison will need to be made between two aspects. The first aspect is the genuine and counterfeit Shema that we talked about in the last video, okay? What does the Bible really say versus modern Judaism's and professed Christianity's interpretation? The second aspect is where these words involving the Shema of Deuteronomy 6:4 and the mark of the beast are received. Where are they received? Okay, there's a counterfeit, there's a genuine. To every genuine, there is a counterfeit. The enemy of righteousness sees to that. The mark of the beast entails a mark in the right hand and in the forehead. You will see the same symbolism, a mark on the forehead and possibly the right hand. It doesn't say right or left. In the Shema of Israel, which is Deuteronomy 6:48. So we're going to try and keep this simple. So in their last video, I read through all this. I'm not going to do that just this time, but highlighting the Shema of Deuteronomy 6:4. Here's your genuine on the left, okay, which from see, the thing is, when you have a genuine, which in the King James Version it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord." But the two key words in that is God for Elohim, and that's plural, which demolishes the whole one God in the counterfeit Shema straight up. The second one is the word one, which is echad. And if it was meant to be only one, the word yekid, not echad, would be used. But echad is used, and it means a oneness and duality, because it's used during the days of creation. Concerning the evening and the morning, two parts, says day one. So evening, morning, day one. Oneness and duality. Two parts working together as one. Man and his wife. Two. A man and his wife working together as one. They shall be echad, one flesh. But that doesn't mean they're only one. It means there's a oneness and duality. Same thing with the Shema. Hear, O Israel. So it reads literally, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our gods is echad, a oneness and duality. That's what it's telling you. But modern Judaism's conclusion is one God. Same as the Trinity of the little horn, the woman. And we know who's behind it. The one who wanted to be worshipped. That's the devil. And that's why he made a counterfeit. So the Shema, you'll notice, it says, and thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. So you don't know if it's right or left. It doesn't matter. The fact is the truth of the Godhead in the Shema is a part of this seal of God in the Shema to be bound upon thine hand, and it has to do with being as frontlets between thine eyes. Okay? And here, I believe we have a connection with a belief in faith. Okay? So if I accept the counterfeit, that's my belief in faith. And here's where I accept it in my mind. Okay? So that's what I believe here. But the mark of the beast, because the third angel warns, if any man worships the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, and I'm just forgetting the text there in Revelation, because it actually does say it's in the right hand. But here in 13, 16, and 14:9, it says in the forehead or in his hand. Okay, so that's the location where it's bound or received regarding the genuine and the counterfeit, and it has to do with the belief an acceptance of who God really is. Okay, so the question is God confirming that the mark of the beast is the counterfeit Shema? Hello? Remember, the first and second angel's message are warning us that the ultimate issue in the last days is over concerning worship of him that made, or worship of the beast's image. The him that made aspect concerns immediately the truth of the Godhead as revealed in the genuine Shema. Our God's is echad, oneness and duality, and verified in John 1:1. Two in beginning, where it says there were two anarche, the Logos and the Theos in beginning. So review, please observe very carefully. So we had this in the thought paper, the following Bible truth from the Hebrew. Now this gets down to the, the details. Okay, so in the Shema of Israel, we have here, this is from the interlinear, here, O Israel, Yahweh, our God, is Yahweh one. Okay, here it says there Jehovah. All right, and look up, go to YouTube, type in, singing the Shema, and you'll hear these words. Okay, Shema, O Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Okay, I believe that's just, it's been a little while since I've actually heard those words sung through in the Hebrew. But the point is, the two key words are Eloheinu, which is our gods, our God or our gods, right there. That Hebrew word right there, our gods, okay? Elohim, plural. So the masculine plural has before all suffixes the ending a, but certain modifications in the form of this ending take place due to the character of the following consonants, okay? So this arrow, I've got this in reader view, but in the thought paper, this arrow is pointing down up from the word echad, which points you up to here. See, this word Eloheinu is right here. So the original form A is contracted to, that's that Hebrew symbols there, before all plural suffixes. Now, I'm not going to try to explain this anymore. Elements of Hebrew, Harper, page 144 is where this can be found in reference. And look, it can't be disproven. Okay, so continuing on. Echad means one in duality from Genesis 1:5 and 2:24. If one in a singular sense is intended, then yekid, see, is used. And that's in 22:2. So the Shema of Israel thus reads, Jehovah, our gods, is one Jehovah. And this is from the Eternal Verities Seminar Helps by ALF. This is from the founding editor. These are just some more linguistic notes titled God Who Is He? From Genesis 1:1, Bereshith bara Elohim. In beginning, with no article, no the. In beginning, Bereshith bara created, which is singular, Elohim, gods, plural. So note the plural subject, okay, right here, but the singular verb, created. New Testament comment, John 1:3, all things were made by him, the word, and without him was not anything made that was made. Deuteronomy 6:4 from the NWT translation. Listen, O Israel, Jehovah thy gods, Hebrew plural, is one Jehovah. Isaiah 44:6 from the ARV, thus saith Jehovah, the King of Israel. That's number one. Eternal Father, number one, and his Redeemer, Jehovah of hosts, Eternal Father, number two, and they're both speaking echad, oneness and duality. I am the first and the last, and beside us, because it's plural, there is no Elohim. So when they're both speaking and they're saying there's no other gods besides us, there's only two in beginning, and there is no other gods. Because while you may have false god like an idol, it's not really real in God. I mean, Anyone can go out and make a god of the tree in their backyard. That doesn't make it God. But here you have the two speaking as one. They're saying the exact same thing. Like if my wife and I were to, write a message down and we began reading or speaking it to you, but we're both speaking at the same time. New Testament comment, Revelation 1:8, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, the Almighty. 1:10 to 11 and 12 to 13, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. See, here's the Almighty says, I'm Alpha and Omega. And here, I am Alpha and Omega. I turned to see the voice that spake with me. Being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks, and in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man. And compare these other verses. They're both, I'm Alpha and Omega. It's so simple. Zechariah 6:12 to 13. Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, Behold, the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall be a priest upon his throne. And the counsel of peace shall be between, from the Hebrew, and in the margin, if you have a good Bible, the counsel of peace shall be between the two of them. See John, these verses here in Hebrews, okay? So the Shema of Israel reads, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. The word for one is echad, and is found in Genesis 1:5, where evening and morning are designated as one day. Genesis 2:24, the word is also used where a man and his wife are stated to be one flesh, see, yet are two persons. Where the meaning is only one only, the word is yeked. This usage is found in Genesis 22:2, where God speaks of Isaac as the only son of Abraham. This oneness in duality is confirmed in Isaiah 44:6, Zechariah 6:13, and Proverbs 34. The Gospel of John is prefaced with the revelation of God as two, God and the Word. There's your source. So here's some more linguistics. Just as helps. Look, it just helps. So the key words in Deuteronomy 6:4 is Yahweh, which is this word here, from the Hebrew number 3068 in Strong's, and then Elohim, Yahweh, and Echad. Echad equals a oneness in duality. But here you have Elohim, which is plural in number. There's from the lexicon there. Echad, Genesis 1, or Genesis 1:5, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening, there's the first part, and the morning, second part, were the Echad, first day, oneness in duality. He gave us an example of how Echad was going to be used, because later on the Shema would be written using that same word, revealing the truth about the Godhead. He didn't leave anything undone so that we couldn't understand. So we're not going to be without excuse. And the evening and the morning was day one, Echad. That's from the Interlinear Bible. Echad, so therefore equals a oneness in duality. The same word in Deuteronomy 6:4 is Echad, a oneness in duality. Plural Yahwehs acting together as Echad, oneness in duality, just as a man and his wife were to be Echad in Genesis 2:24. And they become to one flesh, Echad. Digital Interlinear Scriptural Analyzer. And they shall become into one flesh, one, Echad. Interlinear Bible. Wow, right? So, two acting together as Echad, just as Elohim said in Genesis 1:26, let us make man in our image. They're both speaking. Thus saith the Lord, the King of Israel and his Redeemer. I'm the first and last. There's no gods beside us. Let's make man in our image after our likeness. Two working together in perfect oneness. Created two. So notice how there was two working together in perfect oneness. And they created two, a male and female, who were to work together in perfect oneness. The evidence? John 1:1. It's just that clear. Wow, right? Thus the genuine Shema teaches a oneness and duality between two Yahwehs, and not the belief of modern Israel and mainstream Christianity that there is only one God. This is why the genuine Shema is not going to sit well with the counterfeit. Catch this point. When you know the truth about the true Shema and you realize that there's a counterfeit and it's about this one God, you'll realize the light bulb will go on. It'll be like, boom. This is why the genuine Shema, because you try to share this, or you're known as, well, you believe this, it's not going to sit well with the counterfeit Seven Noahide Laws that has a severe punishment, and not just a fine. And there's a blasphemy part in there that defines the counterfeit Shema, whose emphasizes monotheism's one God. The Friday believers, as well as the woman of Revelation 17, also hold to a one view of God. Some say this is picky, but it's actually, dear friends, a critical point. So, should you be concerned and aware? Not afraid in light of Romans 8:35 to 39, because look, nothing can separate us, right? Should you be concerned and aware of the Seven Noahide Laws? Because if you hold the Bible's version of the truth of the Godhead, then the genuine Shema is easily known in the testimony of Jesus, which is the spirit of prophecy. And remember, the spirit of prophecy is not confined to a series and volumes of books. The testimony of Jesus, the Bible says, is the spirit of prophecy. And therefore, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus. It means you will have to overcome him, everyone, everything connected with him, by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And that's the Revelation 12:11 status that we're going to be talking about more in this Elohim declaration. So stay posted on that. They love not their lives unto death. So the Seven Noahide Laws are an attack on the first angel's message. Why? First angel's message is saying, fear God, and give glory to him. Two, in beginning. The Seven Noahide Laws are saying, just one. That's an attack on the first angel's message. And you can't be giving the true angels, first angel's message, when you have a corrupted testimony concerning the Godhead, and you're holding the counterfeit Shema. Forewarnings. If any man worship. The three questions that were asked previously were, all right, let's take this slow. Do these developments misapply the Godhead and the first commandment? The Godhead, as revealed in John 1:1, in the first angel's message, fear God and worship him that made. Do those developments on the Seven Noahide Laws misapply the truth of the Godhead and the first commandment to have no other gods before me when they both speak as a oneness and duality? We verily set up our own God and breaking the first and second commandment, basically to have no other gods before him, and setting up, an image when we have our own view of God that doesn't line up with the Bible. Number two, are they an attack on the first and third angel's message? First angel's message is about the Godhead. The third angel's message, it's about worship. You're either going to worship him that made or worship the beast in his image and everything else connected with him. Third angel's message, here are they that keep the commandments of God. There's your first commandment tied back in. And they have the testimony of Jesus, the spirit of prophecy. Okay. Three, are they an attack on the everlasting gospel? The sanctuary message. Christ's eternal deity, divinity, dignity, his eternal righteousness, his imputed righteousness. Okay. The 7 Noahide laws are an attack on all 3 points. And that's where we will stop for this first part 1, and we'll move on to part 2. So I hope this has been helpful. God bless, and take care. See you next time.